You're listening to the Superpower Up Podcast with your superpower experts. This is the place where we explore real-life superpowers and give you the tools to unlock your own.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Rekla, your superpower expert, and I have with me today Sebastien Richard. He is the author of, get this, everyone, Lead Like a Superhero, What Pop Culture Icons Can Teach Us About Impactful Leadership. So to say, he's our kind of person, I think is an understatement. We're going to talk with him today about what superheroes can teach us about leadership. And Sebastien knows a thing or two about leadership, and he offers faith-based coaching and leadership training with a company called Thriving on Purpose. So this is going to be a really fun conversation about what we can learn from our everyday superheroes. So please join me in welcoming Sebastien to the show. Welcome, Sebastien.
Thanks, Tanya. This is going to be awesome. I mean, superpowers and superheroes. I think it's a match made in heaven.
I agree completely. So I do want to just put a little warning out there to all the listeners on this show. We have a little bit of delay on this, but we're rolling with it because this conversation is going to be so fun. You're not going to want to miss it. So just have some patience, settle in, and just know that the information is forthcoming. And it's a really good way to test your patience with guidance and verbiage. So use this interview as an opportunity to just take a breath for a second and allow the information to kind of flow to you without feeling like you need to force the timing of it. So that's my cautionary tale. And as with everything, we trust that there is a purpose, perhaps maybe beyond what we can actually conceptualize at this stage of our existence. So, Sebastien, without further ado, I'm going to ask you, what are your superpowers?
Well, like most superheroes in the comics, finding my superpowers was not something that happened overnight. It mostly happened in my early 20s when I joined my local church. And from being involved more and more, I found that I had a gift for speaking in public, for preaching, for teaching. And that gift was crystallized, if you will, when I was called upon to give a Sunday school class to men. I was based on a book by Stu Weber. It was based on the book titled The Four Pillars of a Man's Heart. Now, keep in mind, I was not married. I didn't have any kids, and I didn't have that much life experience. And I was teaching some of the men in that class who were twice my age. So I wasn't super comfortable. And I was teaching it with another elder who was actually the right age for that. So that kind of helped me with the dynamics of the class. If I had been just myself, I would have felt pretty much out of place. But when I sat down, basically I wrote down the course. I'm the one who put the course together. And I gave one of the sessions on a Sunday morning. And after that, one of my friends came to see me. And he said, "How do you do that?" And I said, "How do I do what?" He says, "Well, how do you do what you just did?" And I didn't really understand where he was going with that. And so I just said, "Well, you want to know how I create the course, how I give the course?" He says, "How do you come up with that?" I said, "Well, I sit down at my desk with my books open, and I do the research, and I just write it down, and then I deliver it." And I could see that he was bewildered by the fact that I was able to do that, because for him, that would have been almost an impossible task, because it just was not one of his strengths. It was not his superpower. It was mine. But at the time, I didn't know it. But on that day, because of his question, I understood that I had a special gift. And so to sum it all up, my superpowers, well, what they are is I'm good at creating content through innovative ideas, through research, and through writing. And I'm also able to deliver it in a talk or, in public speaking. So my superpowers are, number one, my general knowledge base through reading. Number two, my ability to research. And number three, my ability to write, present ideas, and teach them in a way that's relevant, whether in book format, ebook, speaking, or blogging. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, you could have used that gift for a number of things. So why did you channel that into leadership or wanting to help people thrive in their existence?
you just cut there. I'm just going to pick up from what I got. Sorry, Tanya. So basically, I wanted to decide to use that superpower to help other people because I realized that when I taught, spoke, or wrote, I had an impact on people, but a good impact. I basically encouraged them and to become a greater version of themselves. So to me, the ultimate end goal when you try to help other people as a coach or as a speaker, as an author, is for them to make changes that would result in positive results in their lives, right? It reminds me of a story about Abraham Lincoln. I don't know if the story is true, but I read it somewhere and I thought it was amazing. It was during a difficult time in the Civil War, and Abraham Lincoln went into a church after the service began. So he sat in the back and he was not noticed. And the whole time he listened to the music and the sermon, and he left just before the meeting was formally dismissed. And when he returned home, his wife asked him about the church service. And it was okay, he said, and he didn't seem that impressed. So she probed a little bit further. She says, "Did you not like the music?" And he said, "Yeah, I did. I did," replied the president. "It was sung beautifully. It was sung artfully." And then she said, "Well, then you must not have enjoyed the pastor's sermon." He said, No. He said, "I enjoyed it. He was articulate. He was well-informed. He was eloquent. He basically did his homework. He was humorous, but not too much. He was sober, but not too much. The sermon was very good. But," he said, "ultimately, it failed completely." And his wife asked, "It failed? After all that, how could it have failed?" And here's what he said, and I think it's amazing. He said, "It failed because though well-informed, humorous, and articulate, the pastor failed to challenge us to do anything truly great."
Wow, that's a great story. Like you said, whether it's factual or not, it's a very powerful example of I think one of the tenets of leadership. And so, how do you go about really challenging the people that you work with to do something truly great?
Well, I basically use my superpowers because I think I really believe, I'm a firm believer in the power of words, but also believe in the power of the human spirit. And I think everybody's here for a purpose, hence the name of my company, Thriving on Purpose. So what I do is I try to get it out of them to make them believe that they do have a purpose, to help them find it, and to help them run with it, right? Like basically they have to find their superpowers. I mean, I found mine, and that really inspired me to delve deep into that type of business. So I make it my business to help other people to find theirs.
Very cool. And so talk to us a little bit about the book, the concept of superhero and why, I like the fact that you the subtitle is What Pop Culture Icons Can Teach Us. What was the motivating factor for taking it in the direction of the superheroes?
Yeah, well, that's something that's never been done in my opinion, not on the scope that I've done it. And like any great idea, sometimes it just falls on your lap in a way. Like Newton, the apple fell on his head. Well, for me, I was just listening to a podcast that had nothing to do with the superheroes or not. I don't even know if it had anything to do with leadership, to be honest. But, sometimes your mind wanders, and my mind was wandering at the time. And I had the thought of superheroes, and I thought about Superman. I was like, oh, Superman is a really good leader. And then I thought about Batman, and I came to the same conclusion. He's also a good leader. And then I thought about Captain America, and on and on. And all of a sudden, I was on a track that I found interesting. So I grabbed a pen and a paper, and I started writing down some popular superhero names, or my favorite ones, basically. And I realized that most of them were really great leaders. But I also realized another thing. I realized that they all lead very differently. For example, Superman leads from the front. He just like goes like a locomotive, and he just gets it done. Batman leads from the back, which is very different. He's going to stand back, analyze, really look at things, and calculate all the possible outcomes before he decides on a course of action. That's another very different way of doing things. Spider-Man leads from the heart, even though he doesn't even consider himself a leader. His servanthood, the way he serves others, always putting his life at risk, makes him into a leader, even though he might be a reluctant one. For Captain America, it's no holds barred leadership. I mean, he's probably the epitome of the great or the greatest superhero comic book leader. Stars and stripes and all. I mean, the guy just goes into battle right alongside you, and he's gonna take the brunt of it and giving orders left and right, and he just knows where to go and what to do and how to do it. So he just goes right in there and does it. So they all have a different style, and I came down with 12 names of superheroes that I thought were really, really, really good leaders, and all that took me about 5 minutes. So after 5 minutes, I reread it, and I was like, oh my goodness. Then I got excited. I grabbed the phone, called my wife. I said, honey, guess what? And she said, what? I said, I'm going to write a book. And I knew right then and there that I had come up with an amazing book idea. And what's great about the book is that when people read it, they can identify with the different styles of the different leadership of the different superheroes. So they, at the end of the book, they can be like, hey, you know what? I find out that I lead more like Wolverine or Wonder Woman or Batman. So they have a better idea of their style of leadership. So it helps them to have a better grasp on themselves.
Very cool. I love the imagery and the association. I think that's powerful. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking again, and I really want to touch on the difference between single leadership and collaboration, based on some of the stuff that Sebastian's been sharing with us. So you've been listening to Sebastien Richard here on the Superpower Up podcast. We're talking about what superheroes can teach us about leadership. Stay with us, and we're going to dive in even deeper when we get back from break, folks. Stay tuned.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The Superpower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the Superpower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/the-net to learn more.
Awesome. You're listening to the Superpower Up podcast. We're talking with Sebastien Richard today, and we're talking about what superheroes can teach us about leadership. And so before the break, we discussed the book and the icons around the leadership styles. I mean, it's really amazing. I think that you tapped into something beautiful in the sense that we all have these boxes to kind of put that imagery into. So what do you make of the Avengers and the Defenders and the Justice League? And so now we're seeing this trend of bringing everyone together to work together. What's your take on all of that?
Well, my take is that it's great for my book, first of all. But second of all, I think it's amazing because, I mean, no one person ever accomplished something truly amazing without the help of others, And I think that's what's great about these team-ups. Avengers, Justice League was just released a couple of weeks ago. And I talk about it in the book. I mean, the power of a team. What makes a team great is that basically working together is like sharpening one another. I mean, for example, take the Avengers or the Justice League. They are great because they make each other greater. They sharpen one another. They compensate for one another's weaknesses. Their strengths complement one another. And so they work as a massive unit and accomplish a great deal more than they ever could if they were alone.
Yeah, I agree. It was really interesting. You and I talked a little bit before the show about the whole superpower concept and how it all came about. And my marching orders were very clear. Like, I had to figure out a way to assist people in working together. And at the time I often joke, that I was in a bit of resistance, and, my response was, no, thank you, find someone else. And, I didn't really play well with others. That wasn't my thing. And so, but as I really opened up to the idea, what I found was exactly what you're talking about, which is, one, it's so much more fun to not do it alone, but also there's a real ability to relax into even further your own greatness when you come into partnership or collaboration with others who are also standing in their own greatness. And I wrote an article called "Do You Suffer from Premature Collaboration?" And it came from the idea, from a lot of our due diligence work and stuff, that sometimes people move into collaboration prematurely, from the sense of, the reason why something like Justice League works and Avengers work is because each of those heroes is a hero unto him or herself. And so they've done that first step, which we call, mastering your personal power. They're clear on who they are and what they do. And then it's from that place that we can come into a collaborative environment and be effective within it. And so I think it's, like you said, it's awesome for your book. It's very awesome for our platform as well, because it does model this concept of, yes, collaboration is powerful when people are ready, and had those heroes try to move into collaboration prior to their own evolution, it probably wouldn't have worked out as well. And so I think that that's a really cool component from the leadership conversation of, what does it take to be a good leader? You have to be able to work with other people. My bias is that you first and foremost have to have a solid sense of who you are, and not use the collaboration to define yourself. And that creates really amazing collaborative projects, sustainable, creative solutions, and all that fun jazz. What is your take on that sort of perspective?
Yeah, well, I agree with you with the self-awareness, I think, is the main key that's going to help you develop your leadership. And that's ironically what is missing in our world that can be very shallow at times. That's overly, how can I put this, overly loaded with information. People take less and less time to know themselves. And that can be done, I think, best when you're not necessarily doing stuff, or more you're more introspective, and more quiet time. So that way of doing things is pretty much, how can I put this? It's hard to come by today, and we have a very noisy world. So that has made people less and less aware of themselves. So it's harder for them to tap into their own leadership and to tap into their own superpowers, get to really know themselves by being self-aware. That's a huge key right there. And that's where it starts, actually.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like that's a big part of the work that we here at Superpower Experts do in the world, is being able to provide some of that guidance. We took it a step further from not just mastering your personal power, but then there's this process of attuning to your individual resonance. And some people would liken that to spiritual growth, or kind of getting into contact and connection with source or with God. And for me, we take that we take that a step further into making sure that you're very solid, not just in the concept of who you are, but really in the total embodiment of that. And that leads to this amazing self-dominion that's based in not ego, but based in connection to yourself and to God and to everyone else.
Yeah.
And so it creates this really nice checks and balance system in a way. It's kind of like cryptocurrency in that way. Interesting. There's this whole blockchain analysis that we could probably come up with for this, but that's probably another conversation. Anyway, so it is the complexity. And again, another aspect of the guidance I received was not to oversimplify it for people, but to teach people how to navigate the complexity. Because like what you said, our world's not getting quieter. Our world's not getting more simple. In fact, it's getting much more complex. And so, we kind of cut people off at the knees if we pretend that it's like, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, and then you're done. And it's like, there's going to be a lot of variables that come up, and better to arm people with that, with the ability to navigate that kind of complexity and those kinds of variables than to pretend that it's going to calm down. And ironically, of course, then it does calm down, because once you learn to navigate complexity, you find this internal peace. And for you, your experience is that it absolutely calms down, even when it may appear that the world around you is pretty chaotic.
Yeah, that's a good point. And if you look also at all the great leaders and the people that we admire most, whether today or in the past, they have that ability to disconnect from the busyness, and they created for themselves that personal space, that time every day that was, whether for spiritual growth or personal growth, that time where they would just consecrate it to their own growth and themselves, so they could really go within. And there's a saying I love. It's like, if you don't go within, you will go without. And I think that sums it up really good there. I mean, people have to learn to go within.
Absolutely. Well, and a lot of it is being, like the whole concept of being in the world but not of it, and making sure that you can do your work here. It's not about enlightenment. It's not about transcending and going somewhere else. It's about the concept of, being able to walk in the world and do your work, and being armed with that level of solidity within self, carrying that peace within you. And I think that it's not that our superheroes aren't troubled, because for sure they all have very fascinating origin stories, but the end result is their ability to kind of like Neo in the Matrix, and just like whoosh, it's like it all quiets, and it's this control over the physical environment, not because you seek control, but because you ultimately exude peace and calm and tranquility within you, and you carry that with you, and that's what allows you to move through the chaos.
Exactly. Well, Jesus called us to be salt and light, and I think that's what it means, right? I mean, you don't just keep it in a corner. A light has to be shone on the world, and salt has to be spread all over the place, right? So that's what it is. I mean, if you're going to have your impact on the world, then you have to let your light shine.
Absolutely. Well, very cool. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating conversation. I appreciate you coming on the show. Let's let people know where they can go to find out more about you.
Sure. Well, they can go to our main hub. My wife and I operate Thriving on Purpose. She's the techie brains behind the whole, how can I put the whole image and everything, the behind the scenes hard worker. So we're working together. She's also a John Maxwell team coach. And you can find us at thrivingonpurpose.com. That's our main hub. Or you can find us on Facebook too, like facebook.com/thrivingpurpose. Or you can find it for the page for the book. You can go at facebook.com/leadlikeasuperhero. And
Beautiful.
of course, the book is available on Amazon. It's available on all the great bookstores out there on the web.
Perfect. Well, I love that. So what's the last piece of advice you want to offer people about, how to kind of take this icon, like the superhero icons, and implement a change in their own existence from a leadership standpoint?
Well, the first thing, like we said before, is to find your superpower. I mean, if you're going to be a leader, you have to be a leader in your area of gifting, in the area of your superpowers. If you're really going to have an impact on the world, that's first and foremost what you have to do. Because sometimes we have a lot of goodwill and we're going to put a lot of effort, but in the wrong area. So the impact will be much less than if we actually work our strengths. So I always tell people to work their strengths relentlessly and with discipline. So that's how you're going to stand out. Because we live in a world where more and more it's all about specialization. We don't live in the Renaissance years anymore, when someone could, like Leonardo da Vinci, for example, pretty much gather in his own brain almost all of the knowledge that was available at the time. That's just impossible today. There's just too much knowledge out there. So people have to specialize, and for that, they have to become, like your show says, superpower experts. So they have to be experts of their own superpower.
I love that. You're one of the first people to really kind of get that, that it's kind of tongue in cheek in the sense of, our belief is that we all are experts in our own superpowers. And so I love the fact that you gave voice to that. Very cool. Well, Sebastien, I like what you're up to in the world. I appreciate knowing that you're out there doing it. We honor you and your journey and the work that you're doing with others, and especially love the fact that you're doing that with your wife. We love co-creative partnerships here at Superpower Experts. And just thank you. Let us know how we can continue to support you.
Well, Tanya, it was great. I had a great time on your show, and you do the same on your end. You just keep adding value to the world the way you're doing. I know you're making a difference. People like you make a difference, and you can change the world one person at a time. And if you got people listening to your show, well, you never know the impact that can make in the person's life.
Beautiful.
Just keep it up.
Well, thank you for that affirmation and the reminder. And all of you out there, as always, we appreciate your loyalty. And until next time, go out, uncover your superpowers, and change the world. Take care, everyone.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and discover your superpowers today.